discuss it. This afternoon, I think that was a good statement. We do have a tradition. This afternoon, we received a letter from one of our residents that I'd like to read. It said, "Dear City Council members, tonight at the City Council Reorganization meeting, we will be electing our new mayor and mayor pro tem. I strongly urge everyone to follow the unwritten tradition of making these appointments. If you follow this tradition, Mayor Pro Tem Walsh will become our mayor, and Councilmember Koerber will become the mayor pro tem because he received the most votes in the 2012 election. Several years ago, the City Council did not follow this tradition, and the result was that it further divided the community. The upcoming year will be a difficult one for the council because of the financial difficulties the city is facing. We need a united community in order to face the challenges that are ahead. Respectfully, Leslie Henry." Now, I agree with Ms. Henry that we should follow the unwritten tradition of following these elections. And I also agree with her that when this happened several years ago, it did cause a great divide within the community. This occurred when newly elected Councilmember Mary Ann McGilvery, Kurt Zimmerman, and Don Watts bucked tradition and appointed Kurt Zimmerman as mayor and hoisted Mary Ann McGilvery as mayor pro tem, even though seated Mayor Pro Tem Joe Mosca was still on council when this passed over. This caused a great divide, and I do not wish to see that more anything this year. I also agree with Ms. Hinton, as evidenced by our vote tonight, that Mayor Pro Tem Walsh should be elected mayor. And I agree with her that the council member with the most votes, the council member who received the most votes in the last election should be elected mayor pro tem. You see, this is the unwritten rule that all seated council members, the next in line for mayor is that council member with the most seniority who hasn't been mayor. In the event that there are multiple council members who are elected concurrently, then the next move to mayor pro tem is that council member with the most votes. Where I disagree with Mrs. Hinton is her assessment that Councilmember Koerber should be elected mayor pro tem because he got the most votes. Chris Koerber was elected in a special election to fill a seat vacancy left when Joe Mosca left, and whose term had already included being mayor. The council member who had the most votes in the regularly scheduled municipal election was John Harabedian, followed by John Kapocha. Councilmember Harabedian is next in line for mayorship, followed by Councilmember Kapocha. I would like to honor that unwritten tradition this evening and urge my fellow council members to do the same. Therefore, I nominate Councilmember Harabedian to be mayor pro tem.
And I'll second it.
I'd like to put a competing motion on the table. I'd like to nominate Chris Koerber. I do think he got the most votes. Again, there were 4 people running for the regularly scheduled election. And so each person that voted got to vote for 2 of those. Mr. Koerber was up against one other. There was only 1 vote for that position. So given that criteria, I think he got the most votes. So I would like to put that motion on the table.
I'll second that.
Discussion. I agree with you, right? And Councilmember Koerber got a lot of votes. That was a good thing. But that was a special election. And I hate to say it, but there were actually 5 members running for 3 or 4 seats on city council in the end. And therefore the math is not even working out that way. I'm going to stand by my motion to appoint Councilmember Harabedian as mayor pro tem.
And I'll just make a comment before we vote here. I think that this is somewhat confusing to me, to be quite honest with you. And it's disappointing. And I don't think it's the finest hour for a few of my council members. But I'm not surprised at this point, to be honest with you. Let's take a step back and talk about the facts. The facts are pretty simple. In this town, we have a tradition where the member of the 4-year council member election who has the most votes becomes the mayor pro tem and the mayor in succession. Simple. Councilmember Koerber ran to fulfill the unexpired term for Councilmember Joe Mosca, who has already served as mayor. The tradition in Sierra Madre is to not allow a council member to be mayor twice in the same 4-year term. That's not our tradition. So by voting for Councilmember Capocha's motion, we would be bucking tradition here in Sierra Madre and setting a precedent where if we ever had a special election where there was less members running in that election than in the general election, that winner would automatically become Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor. And I hope you're aware of that. I think you probably are. But that's not a tradition, that's not a precedent that we have here in Sierra Madre, nor do I want to set it today. Taking a step back, if this wasn't involving me, and I think it's unfair to our new mayor and our outgoing mayor to put them in this position. This should have been a night to celebrate their service and to, as a community, celebrate the service that both of them put in to this council. But instead, we have to talk through this like we're children. Logic is what it is. You can't become mayor twice in the same term. Councilmember Koerber is essentially Joe Mosca right now.
No, I'm not.
You are fulfilling Joe Mosca's seat. Joe Mosca was already mayor. Now, either Councilmember Capocha and Councilmember Koerber were not aware of that, and if they weren't, then all's fair. And let's make the record clear. Joe Mosca was mayor during this term, during the term that Councilmember Koerber is fulfilling. If you were aware of it, then I believe that this is purely a opportune power grab. That's all it is. And I think that at the end of the day, this is severely scarred my perception of you two. And I hope that it doesn't happen again. Again, I'll leave it there.
And I want to piggyback on that, because you raise an interesting point. If we had a special election where somebody ran unopposed, then obviously they would get more votes, hopefully they would get more votes, than any other members running in the regularly scheduled election. If that were the case, let's say we only had let's say we had 7 people running for council. You can't give the special election an advantage over the generally scheduled election. So once again, I'm going to continue on with my motion to appoint Councilmember Harabedian Mayor Pro Tem. We can vote this out.
And I'll second it, and we can take a vote.
Ms. Mayor,
Oh, we have to vote.
I'm eating motion.
Yeah, motion, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to make a quick comment. I'd like to quote Winston Churchill. Oh, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Monachino and Ms. Evans for their very kind words. I'm humbled. Winston Churchill said, "The truth is incontrovertible. Malice may attack it, ignorance may deride it, but in the end, there it is." Thank you.
All right. So,
Can I ask my colleague, you were aware of Councilmember Koerber before you ran for the unexpired term of Joe Mosca that he served as mayor. You were aware of that, for the record.
I'm a council member, you're a council member. All 5 of the people up here are council members elected by the people.
Let the record
So
show
the
that
record
wasn't my question.
states, the record states, and we're not in court, council. The record
No, we're in
states
public, so answer the question.
1,403 votes, Counselor. I'm sorry you had less.
Councilmember Koerber, if you can come
I
up with
have
a way.
no further comment to make.
Well, I do. So if you can come up with a way, and I would love to hear your suggestion, to make the number of votes that you had comparable to the number of votes that I had, I am all ears. And you can bring in any mathematician or statistician to help with that. But basic math shows that you ran against one person. I ran against 4 other people. Now, the fact that you got more votes than me is how it should have worked out. That's how it should have worked out. Now, if I were to have gotten more votes than you, which I almost did, then that would have been a small probability. That almost happened. Now, the fact that Councilmember Capocha doesn't see eye to eye with me on this is fine. And I will remember this going forward, that he doesn't feel like he should become Mayor Pro Tem before you. And that's fine. I disagree with him, and I think the tradition here in Sierra Madre does. But the record is clear that you ran in a special election. You ran against one other person. I ran in a 4-year election. I ran against 4 other people. Therefore, it's apples and oranges. The numbers are not comparable. if you're going to sit here as a numbers guy and tell me that they are comparable, and because you got more votes than me, then you are therefore Mayor Pro Tem, then I think that's laughable. I really do. If you're going to sit here and do it, I think it's petty. I just can't. I honestly am a little shocked. If you have a response to that, I'm all ears.
Madam Mayor.
I haven't said anything, there's been a lot of dialogue.
There is a scenario where you could have come out the top vote getter, and if there wasn't such a spread between Councilmember Koerber and the person he ran against, he could have come in behind you and me and would be seated in this council at this table here. So, I mean, that I just think the fact that there was that much of a spread is meaningful. And I certainly didn't mean this as any disrespect to you.
Well, it was. So.
Well, I understand you're taking it that way. What I'm trying to say is I don't mean it that way. I just believe that Councilmember Koerber got the most votes legitimately. And, you know, you could look at the math different ways. The way I'm looking at it, he got the most votes legitimately. It didn't have to be that way. I don't feel he got any advantage because he was running in a special election. I don't think it matters one whit whether he was replacing an outgoing mayor. I'm just saying, really simple, that he ran a great campaign, got the most votes, and should be seated as Mayor Pro Tem. And I'll just leave it at that. I'm sorry that you're taking it differently than I intended to make it, but that's how I believe it, and that's why my motion was reflected that way.
Madam Mayor.
Understood.
Yes, Councilman.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Councilmember Kaposha for his nomination, and I would like to move that we call the question on the competing motion.
All right. Could we have the motion repeated, please?
Well,
Somebody?
the competing motion.
Okay, you want to do that? You want to restate it? Just for the
I
sake of
could.
the
I
audience.
just, my motion was to nominate Councilmember Koerber for Mayor Pro Tem.
And I seconded it.
All right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
All right. Let's take, you want
Let the
to
record show that that motion was defeated.
3-2. All right.
Now I'd like to call the question on the primary motion.
Yes.
Councilmember Harabedian.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
And the motion. Congratulations.
Congratulations.